Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of January the 29th till February the 4th, 2024. We have quite an intense week ahead of us, but of course the intensity is nothing new. But what is a little bit new is that we have almost two contradictory forces, energies, feelings, and vibes playing out at the same time all throughout the week. One of them is more tensionate, one of them is more, anxious, motivational energy nonetheless, but it may come through quite intensely, quite uncomfortably, quite, as I said earlier, anxiously, if that makes sense. But at the same time, we also have beautiful flowing energies which do promises, blessings, hope, and some kind of solution, some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. So these two energies, it is up to us to make them harmonize with each other if that is possible. And at the same time, we can't really ignore. We cannot ignore the tension. We cannot ignore the anxious expressions of these energies because, as I said, they represent a very powerful motivation and a motivation that comes with lessons, that comes with wisdom, and that comes with a certain kind of maybe just intuitive, but for other people not as intuitive, like proper modus operandi of what it is that we need to do in the very close future. Because, as I said, this energy is definitely where we are already stepped into the portal of the future, but just one foot. We don't know what is there yet. We definitely cannot see it very clearly, but at least a tiny little bit of hint is there. And even that small hint is enough to drive us into a serendipitous anxiety, if that is even possible. So if you're looking at my screen, we shall begin with the analysis of these energies. So the first energy is the sun still squaring Jupiter. The sun in the sign of Aquarius, a place in the sky where it doesn't really like to be in. It is the opposite sign of its home sign of Leo. So it is in exile, so to speak. And in a it's very easy to understand why the sun is not able to bring out its very highest qualities in Aquarius. Well, just think about Leo. That is where it is all about the self-expression, creativity, very powerful feeling and creational energy, passion center that there said everything. Now, the opposite of this energy is Aquarius, where, yes, the individual is there, but that light needs to be, spread. It needs to be shown on everyone, everything. Basically, what your stage is in your life mission. So basically, that takes away the luminosity. Like a very simple example, when a star is really, really bright when you're close to it, the sun in its home sign of Leo, its light turns into just a little dot of light with great distance. So that is Aquarius. But that doesn't mean the light is lost, it is just spread. And square Jupiter, well, this energy is where Jupiter, our hopes and our dreams, our values and our value systems that we are so very much in tune with in the present moment. And being in tune with them is not just due to the very recent Jupiter retrograde that has passed. Jupiter is not still out of its shadow path, so, but that Jupiter retrograde really reminded us of our core values, especially that Jupiter held last year a lot of tensioned aspects with other planets, for example, Venus. That was one of the energies which really, maybe in a rather painful or uncomfortable way, reminded us of what is definitely not going to work value wise for us. regardless of how tempting, modern, or well-functioning for other people it is. For us, it's a big no, let's say. And so the sun squaring Jupiter is just reminding us of this, and reminding us of the collective. Our value system may be in a certain way, and we might be so very in tune with it, embraced it, made it definitely our greatest treasure, Jupiter in Taurus. But if that value system of our inner values do not resonate with the collective energy in any way, shape, and form, well, then you can imagine that this is not going to be a pleasant energy. So this square shows us where it is that we need to compromise, because it doesn't matter who we are. For example, people who have like very powerful Pisces placements in areas of their lives where it's deeply personal, or it is basically soul level, well, those people might love solitude, for example, good old-fashioned immortal values, etc., purity, etc., etc. Yet they cannot embody it. Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, embodiment, embodying what you believe in. They cannot embody it as, how should I even say this, as deeply as they would like it, because if it goes against where the collective energy is going, the tendency, then it will just create pain and great discomfort and a sense of that you're in prison, really. So compromise is necessary. Let me just give an example. For anti-technology people, a tiny bit of technology and knowing how to navigate with it is not gonna hurt. Other people still, like some people are really, really against this new, and this is a very delicate topic. That is why I'm even afraid to speak about it. But what gender is, for example. Is it something that we determine pure in thought and philosophy and principle, Aquarius? And the Aquarian expression of this. So it is very, very modern. Or do we stick to what nature is basically representing? So these two energies, are both part of Aquarius, but they coexist. So the square with Jupiter, even if you're against this, you still need to embrace that for certain people, it's not the same way. And in a way, it's okay. It may not be okay, let's say, in highest principle, but in actual reality, it's okay. So this is just an example, but use this example and basically play with it in anything that has to do with values, with principles, what you believe in, and what is imminently the direction towards the collective energies are going. If that is maybe the anti of what you believe in, this doesn't need to how should I say, turn to something more extreme, turn to something that fuels pain, disappointment, powerful disillusionment. This can be coped with, a certain kind of acceptance, and what all of this means for us, and how we rise above it. So this is what this energy is actually calling for. But of course, this also plays out on a world stage in a very relevant matter. Let me just give you an example, which is also a little bit delicate, but this is just fact. So this is where no one can come up that I'm expressing an opinion or the other, because this is just fact. So Jupiter in Taurus, the power, the embodied power of the law, because Jupiter is a planet which has a lot to do with the law, legislation, legal system, righteousness, etc. their sun in the sign of Aquarius. So we saw Aquarius is the collective. Of course, it is basically all of the human individuals taken into one hive mind. Perhaps this is the word which expresses the best the symbolism. And we saw the International Court of Justice ruling on a very, very important case. And it reflected Jupiter square with the sun so beautifully because, okay, it gave a certain kind of directive, yet it is futile because you cannot force the power players in that legal case to respect it. So it remains pure philosophy without ever being possible to be executed in real life. You cannot enforce that law. Simple as that. So it is just it became just a moral force which can be brushed off. So this is one of the examples of the Jupiter Sun square where certain things are futile. Our resistance to it, our strong reaction to it, us allowing it to show us something about reality which not may be authentic to us, that is also part of this energy, where we must not take it that seriously. Whatever it expresses, whatever injustice, or whatever futility, or in which any way our higher aspirations don't match with where the collective energy is going, it's no problem as long as we have the right attitude to it. But of course, this energy is waning. It is a waning square. The sun is at 8, almost 9 degrees of Aquarius. Jupiter is still at 7 degrees of Taurus. So this square is slowly but surely starting to lose its intensity. But there is another square that is just as, how should I say, irritant. And this is where Mars conjunct Mercury, and Mars and Mercury are going to dance with each other in this conjunction all throughout the week. So basically, they are almost like holding hands here. Their power is combined, and Mercury is combust because of Mars, especially that Mars is very comfortable in the sign of Scorpio, sorry, in the sign of Capricorn. So it means business, and it wants to finish, or better said, whatever it initiates, it wants to have great effect. Mercury communications are ongoing. Anything that is solved with intelligence, brainstorming, inventivity, the mental sphere, the creational force of the mental sphere, let's say it like that, but also negotiation, diplomacy, etc., technology. So these topics are highlighted, but they do square the nodes of the moon. So this square is not very easy because it causes frustration, a lot of frustration. Now, Mars and Mercury together, it comes into our awareness, Capricorn, in a very down-to-earth, logical, rational, understandable way of everything that is a, let's say, obstacle, blockage, still needs to be worked on for our greater progress. You know, the North Node in Aries is exactly our progress, getting to where we need to be, initiating and following it through with consistent action, the main karmic themes in our lives, especially in a creational way, because Aries is the sign of the first breath. So this is where all of us want to embrace something new, something very personal. It has to be about the self, our identity, Aries. But of course, Pluto in Aquarius enforces this in its own way. And Mars in the sign of Capricorn, again, adds to this energy a great deal. North Node in the sign of Libra. Everyone, people and institutions, contractual partners, anyone basically, friend or foe alike, who gets in our way, well, South Node has to be eliminated or abandoned, or, to unblock our path, so to speak. So this energy causes some frustration. And the square between Mars and Chiron is still felt, still there. So it's a really irritating energy. And again, this highlights the fact of what Chiron and Aries represent. It's like a double, dual, however you call it, edged blade, where it cuts both ways. And the wars that are going on the world stage are such a clear example for this. Anything that has to do with fighting Aries, it wounds both sides. And I'm not gonna even debate this further because this is so very obvious. But of course, there is also a lot of effort for healing, because Mercury is one of those planets which sometimes directly, other times indirectly, has a lot to do with the process of healing, the flow, starting the flow of healing. So this is also, I would say, humanitarian efforts for healing, for helping. Now, perhaps these energies are just the underline, because one of the major energies that we do sense is this Uranus. Uranus on the 27th of January went direct. Of course, it just stood still in the sky. It's still standing still all of the week. It's not able to move forward very, very quickly. But this is nothing unusual. This happens every time when a big planet like Uranus changes directions. But Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is fixity, stability, permanence. Uranus is chaos, upheaval, shock, uprooting. So when it goes direct, any planet, its symbolism is greatly amplified, and usually its more extreme expressions are favored. So on one hand, this is pure frustration. This puts our nervous system on fire, problems sleeping, sleeplessness, anxiety. But this is where sometimes that anxiety comes just as an energy. It may not have any logic to it, any psychological reason, any Taurus physical reason, like diet, nutrition, how many coffees you had, the exercise, the routine, what you did that day. Sometimes those contribute a great deal to how we feel, especially neurologically speaking. But this time, it may not have absolutely no real reason, real in the sense of physical, rational cause and effect, but rather it is the Schumann resonance and the Earth's electromagnetic field changing its frequencies with this Uranus. And needless to say, the solar activity as well. The very powerful solar flares that are ongoing as we speak. So this may cause us a sense of frustration, and this may cause us, to feel really, really anxious. And even if this can happen in a rather positive sense, a serendipity that we cannot explain, still expect your energy levels not to be constant. Expect a bit of chaos. But this energy, combined with, as I said, all the frustrations that we feel because of the Mars and nodal squares, Mercury as well. Then we have the Sun and Jupiter square. And needless to say, besides all these squares, as I said, Mercury, the planet of the mind, combust by a very powerful Mars, we are alert. But this Uranus adds to this, and it kind of makes us feel that it is a time of progress. We know it. We await action. We await the moment. We await opportunities. We await initiation, etc., etc. Yet we cannot make as much progress as we feel. And that is absolutely fine, because only now are all of the big planets direct and most major astrological energies direct, which means that yes, it is a time of progress, but we're still wrapping up basically everything that is pending from either the very close past last year or the more distant past, Saturn in the sign of Pisces, of course. But we're still in a period where the energy is focused on the big closures or acquiring anything we need for the upcoming initiation, bigger progress, big moves forward. But as I said, right now we still need to close the past. We may feel that the time is here, progress is here. We will need to ready ourselves to take action. We feel the sense of urgency, as in, I need to get this job now, ASAP. Buy whatever you are preparing to buy ASAP. I'm running out of time. Some people, let me use my personal example. I'm almost 40. I need to hurry up with even things which are not material. You know what I mean? Yet, it doesn't matter how this makes us feel. Momentum forward, steps forward are gonna be slow and sure. This is where, first of all, either we get the big closures, and those big closures and anything that might be pending from the past now did under this freshly Venn direct Uranus, those may come as lightning bolts, surprises, unexpected, in a flash of a moment, in a blink of an eye. The big mountain of karma that just a day before was the same as ever is gone, it's closed, it's completed in a flash of an eye. So these are to be expected. Now, of course, such a big closure changes how we feel about the future and our future opportunities, absolutely. But in the present, that is much, much more likely what we can expect for the past to truly start closing. And important progress in this sense is definitely knocking at the door, because, okay, this Uranus is making us feel this way. It's energizing us. It's basically turning our higher mind to an inferno of thoughts, of possibilities, of brainstorming. Yet there is such a beautiful, free-flowing, harmonious energy to complete this, to complement this. So especially at the very beginning of the week, so the 29th, this energy is very precise and powerful. So on one hand, we have this Uranus here at 19 degrees of Taurus, freshly Venn direct. It's not moving yet, so it's amplified. We have a Virgo moon, a beautiful Virgo moon, connecting with Mercury and Mars in the sign of Capricorn. Very precise energy, a grand trine, a blessing. So this motivation, this anxiety, this overdrive of Uranus, this energizes us. When each and every time when Uranus and Mars hold a trine together, that means something happens very, very quickly. They're an Earth trine. So something important, something that matters, either in your life's power setup, power games, in any way, shape, and form, professionally, especially, let's say, in family and partner, in anything. But this can also be, something that you need in your life. And need in your life, Moon and Virgo, how you feel about the utility, how you feel about the practicality. Because this free-flowing energy, well, whatever it does, it has to calm your Virgo moon, if that makes sense. So I see this either as a really beautiful surprise, unexpected help, Mercury, unexpected communication, good news, recognition, honors, rewards. It may, as I said, even come from the past. Why? Because Uranus just freshly went direct, so its energy is still more past oriented than future. It is bringing everything to the future now, it is like pulling. So something maybe is pulled into the present and future from the past, but something delightful. Now, this is a really, really good end. So this part represents the good surprise, the good news, the positive outcomes, and the positive, evolution, very quick, rapid, dynamic evolution of events, or something makes us feel really, really hopeful and good. Now, another energy that is absolutely beautiful, harmonious, and active at the same time is Venus in the sign of Capricorn. Again, practical, not just love, romance in a platonic or philosophical, purely philosophical way. No, no, this is practical. Holds a trine with Jupiter. Now, this energy is extra beautiful, extra blissful, because Jupiter, it was considered by the ancients as the greater benefic, Venus the lower benefic. And whenever these two planets speak together in harmony, in supreme harmony, this represents delight, this represents something that truly brings Venus and Capricorn an advantage, or something that is ultimately useful in any way, shape, and form in your life. And whatever that usefulness is, well, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, it delights the five senses. It bestows, for example, a sense of justice, Jupiter. It can play out as something legislation-wise or legal, administrative, that it feels like a blessing, that does something good. For example, gives something free, bestows rights from the government, from top-down authority. So this energy does solve problems as well. But, the grand trine with Mars, Mercury, Uranus and the moon in Virgo, Uranus in Taurus, moon in Virgo, that's more like an action-oriented, practical expression of the energy and how we feel about it. Because Uranus and Mars together are very, very practical. Jupiter and Venus, however, it's still in Taurus. It still impacts Taurus. But this is something which makes us feel justified, or that an injustice or an inequilibrium in injustice and righteousness and fairness is solved. So this energy actually makes us feel the blessing through in a very deep and sensory way. So the five senses. So you can imagine this can be romance as well, but a very practical one, not just beautiful words, not just, promises. Jupiter alone is just promises. Actually, the Jupiter and Venus trine can represent just promises as well. How a promise is, it is delightful in itself. However, because of the other trines in the sky, chances are the promise is not empty. You know what I mean? So it can be a romantic energy, a partnership energy. It can be an energy which connects people romantically, but lucratively, soul path wise, hobby wise. If they have a common purpose, chances are they find one another. And maybe it is from the practicality of the alliance that romance comes unexpectedly. This grand trine, combined with the Jupiter Venus trine, can actually suggest that. And we have another aspect where Black Moon Lilith, this is both the true and the classical Lilith, but they hold an inconjunction, a quincunx, with the North Node. So this is irritant. This is something that is there. We did not expect it and complicates the situation. But such a quincunx can be taken both ways. It can be a very powerful, as I said, irritant, where it just drives us crazy. It can also be a humorous surprise, let's say, where that highly skilled professional who you hired and they're doing the job perfectly, they're helping you. Well, a romance sparks between the two of you, and how awkward does the situation and surprising and unexpected get. So, besides the collective expression of this energy, besides everything that is very obvious, there might be a surprise in love and partnership. And why do I say this? Let me just show you. There is another energy which actually goes hand in hand with this. So we have here Juno. Juno is an asteroid which rules partnerships, alliances, and basically the vibe of the alliance. We have Uranus. So this means yet another Earth trine. Because this also means that we have another grand trine if we take this Juno into consideration. And of course, Juno is conjunct the moon as well. So this is surprise, surprise in partnerships. Uranus brings the magnetism. Uranus brings the unusual occurrence, or that the fact that love sparks from the situation is highly unusual. It is, let's say, Uranian. Or it can also mean the archetype of the person, a rebellious, unusual, how should I say, a non-conformistic person, or someone who is very, very different from you and your values. Spark can be there. However, Juno's retrograde. It can mean that someone from the past shows themselves in a very, very different way. Juno in the sign of Virgo can also speak about professionals. Work, service, professional. Your alliance is either professional or a practical need, a know-how, a common interest, a common hobby, teaching, mentorship, whatever. And from that, surprise, surprise, the romance is also born, because there might be a very strong attraction there. Earth energy. And Venus rules Taurus. Venus at this time trines Jupiter, but she is the boss of this energy. Venus is love, you know, and especially in the sign of Taurus, attraction, physical attraction, beauty, physical beauty, the delight of the senses. Jupiter in Venus's sign amplifies. And no, Jupiter in Taurus is a nice energy, absolutely, on the long term. But actually, just energetically speaking, Jupiter destabilizes Taurus. So Jupiter in Taurus is not comfortable. We see it as a blessing because it might bring us a lot of whatever. But that's not comfortable. So Jupiter himself also favors the unexpected, the unusual, that which is outside of the norm, our whatever we're used to, or our comfort zone. So again, I have to say this energy does favor romances. Now, and especially with this Moon Juno conjunction. Now, another energy that I do find really, really interesting is that Venus, we know that she trines Jupiter, but both Venus and Jupiter sextile Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And Saturn is the principle of manifestation. It is what determines what is allowed to exist in physical reality and what not. Let me give you an example. Saturn is those rules in architecture which engineers use to design something which determines that the structure is going to stand. Breaking those rules is not possible because the structure will not stand. You know what I mean? Saturn is structures, for example. But apply this principle in any way possible. Saturn is the principle which rewards the work or does not reward it if the work is not up to expectation standards or doesn't meet something. And sextile is an active energy where we do need to take action or sometimes inaction, but we do need to work with it. It doesn't come just freely, doesn't fall into our lap like a trine. But, you know, in my experience, sometimes the sextile is much more powerful than a trine. Because, and I lived this so very many times in my life, a big Venusian trine or something like that, maybe you get your something in life makes you feel elevated, beautiful, special, talented, a compliment, something, but it might not really do anything real for you at all. It gives you a good day or a big smile or a warmth in your heart. That's it. A sextile, however, is much more under your control. This is where you feel that something is working, something is empowered, it's time for something, whatever, and you go with that feeling and you fruitify it. The more energy you put into it, the better results you get. So this is why, as I said, it's not just chances are an empty promise, because Jupiter and Venus, it's a trine and they're benefics, yes, absolutely. But for some people, it can be just an empty promise, which causes you a certain elation and excitedness and just to feel good for as long as you believe it. You know what I mean? But the sextile with Saturn adds the realness. The sextile with Saturn adds the power that it can become real. Saturn in Pisces, maybe the action is not necessarily was done in the present. Maybe it's something that stems from the past. Saturn himself is still going through his shadow path. Jupiter as well. So this is where it might be, but anyway, this makes it real. This makes it useful. This makes it also, you know, Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Something can close a really, really heavy feeling, like a trauma or a big hurt, something you cannot forgive and forget. Pisces. Something triggers and it heals that feeling, closure, forgiveness. You finally snap out of it. So this energy, regardless of what brings you to that state, can be a big, big blessing. Now, since I'm at the asteroids, I also want to show the series. So the planetoid of nurture, whatever nurture means to us, squares Neptune and the galactic. So Ceres is on the galactic center, and Neptune squares both of these. This is not an easy energy, yet it is a useful energy, because what nurtures our deepest faith? Neptune and Pisces, our deepest faith. And Neptune and Pisces is exactly the keyword here is our own unique individual inner faith. Ceres in the sign of Sagittarius, along with the galactic center, is that which is available, whatever shape and form it comes down from the galactic, basically. Like, envisage the galactic center as the very core, the cauldron, the primordial soup of the galaxy. So every energy, even the ether, even the most subtle energies like faith, because what is faith? Higher understanding, higher knowledge, which is not mercurial, that comes and nurtures us. This square forces us to discard that which is zero nutrient. For example, news. For example, social media and the modern spirituality, that part of it which is pure, utter BS. BS, why? I'm not saying it's false or incorrect. I'm saying that it's real in certain people's inner worlds, inner universes. It's real. It's like that. Some people are princes of healing and queens and royalty coming from different galaxies and different constellations and absolutely in their universe. But for collectively speaking, that might not be the case. So the square between Ceres and Neptune filters it out. What is BS and what is not? So it aligns us to a much more authentic and viable source of nurture. And whatever nurtures our faith, our understanding of existence, makes us powerful. That is power. That is the physics of consciousness. That is how we generate our reality. The more pure and aligned, not just with our inner world, but also with the cosmic mind, the galactic center, when it's aligned with both, that means power. That means you're living exactly what you perceive existence as. Now, the opposite of this is when if our reality just doesn't match. Why? Because we are embracing, fueling some kind of BS, which is not, which is like, spiritually speaking, zero nutrient. Like if we would be eating fast food, that fills the stomach, but how well does it nourish us and nurture us? It doesn't really, you know? It's like that. So we have to, how should I say, put ourselves on a rigorous spiritual diet, consume that which is profoundly nourishing and nurturing to us, and discard that which looks nourishing and maybe tastes good, but is zero nutrient for our being. So this is where a strong, strong, strong filter. Now, of course, on the world stage, this plays out as religious clashes, what is true and what not, but chances are nothing is true in that sense, you know, religious fanaticism, and people, of course, the opposite of this, abandoning mainstream religion for something which feels much more authentic and truthful and benevolent to them. So, yes. I think I'm going to move on now to another relevant date, which is the 31st of January, where we have this, let me put it back to the general. So, this is where we have Mercury conjunct Mars at first Mercury, and in a few days Mars activating that 21st, 22nd degree of Capricorn, where in January 2020 Saturn, Pluto, Sun, Mercury, and Ceres met in the sky and changed our reality, for our paradigm forever, basically. So we might get some kind of echo, reverberation of whatever has happened in the COVID. And this is where, from whatever perspective, legal, administrative, financial, medical, etc., etc. So we are going to see strong reverberations. For example, one of the ways that this energy is playing out in a very obvious way, what happened with the contracts during COVID? You know what I mean? With big companies almost forcing their merchandise, which was the vaccine, onto countries and governments. So now that the substances are being contested exactly by governments themselves, there are massive legal issues where sometimes governments are suing the companies, other times exactly the big pharma is suing governments. Like, for this is what's happening in my country, where Pfizer is suing Romania because it ordered a certain number of vaccines, but after it discovered that the vaccines are not doing their job, of course it canceled. So anyway, but we will see that playing out on the world stage. And also another beautiful trine, which maybe to most astrologers it's not even something noticeable, but to me it really, really speaks, where you see Venus here. She holds a trine with White Moon Selena. So she is like the opposite of Black Moon Lilith, our soul's highest aspiration, our soul's most divine, most harmonious, most serene expression, basically. And this energy simply highlights Venus. It makes her, because she's in Capricorn. So in Capricorn, as I said, she is not her, you know, idealistic self. She is quite practical. She is not all that romantic. But with this White Moon, Selena, and Venus trine, this energy causes her to, how should I even for this moment in time, manifest, because Capricorn is the sign of manifestation. Her whatever practical needs that are being fulfilled in exactly almost like a divine light, in the highest expression possible. This is where the fantasy, the romance, the purity, or whatever is real. It is felt like that. It comes into your life in its highest possible expression, and the frequency, the vibration, the way it is embraced by us, which gives us its superiority, so to speak. So this is a really, really beautiful aspect where our soul feels like it embraced something that was like a dream or its highest aspiration. So this is truly like a sugar coating or sprinkles on top from the universe to whatever is going to manifest. Now, moving on, we're already in the 1st of February here, where Mercury sextiles Neptune. And this is also a very beautiful energy. Mars, of course, will follow this in a few days. This aspect is superb for anything artistic, anything creational, writing, music, poetry, and any kind of practical problem solving, but with a touch of niceness, with a touch of spirit, with a touch of art, with a touch of humanitarianism, with a touch of compassion or love to it. This is a really, really lovely aspect. And we must not forget Mars also energized. It's not Mars at this time is not as close to Mercury as it was at the beginning of the week, but it's still there. And Mars being there, that in itself is enough to add the energy, to add the realness, and to basically, this aspect can sometimes represent that extra mile, that getting out of my way to make a work as beautiful, as wholesome, as complete as possible. So this is the extra touch that can do a lot of good. So, and needless to say, Mars will replace Mercury in a few days with this aspect. So Mars will hold the sextile with Neptune. And that just makes this even more executory, if that makes sense. And Mars at this time holds a close trine, a tight trine to Uranus. So definitely action time. A lot of action here. Now moving on to the 3rd. So here in the 3rd, you see Mars is now at the 22nd degree of Capricorn, going back to January 2020. And this is where it's not just collectively speaking, this will also play out in our lives individually, either as a memory, either as a big moment of understanding and wisdom, or we look back at how that 2020 changed our lives, our routines, our modus operandi, Capricorn, our careers, our relationship with companies, with third parties, with legislation even, or um, our contractual behavior, if that makes sense. We can simply, something happens in the present. For example, we sign a contract or we consider a negotiation, and we are reminded of how different we used to do all these things pre-2020, how different our lives were, how different our value sets were, how different, as I said, our reaction to anything Capricornian was. And this can also be a really good energy because sometimes the trip back in time is triggered by something useful and practical that we learned doing, let's say, after that January 2020. And finally, on the 4th, now this aspect is not exact yet, but it's gonna be exact a day or two after. So Mars, not only did it activate that degree, But now it's starting to hold a square, a conversation of tension, with planetoid Aries in Mars's own home sign of Aries. Now, we must know that Mars is very powerful here because it is in Capricorn. Aries is also very strong in Mars's home sign of Aries. Aries is rebellion. Aries is fight for sovereignty. Aries is exactly my way or the highway, taken into the most extreme. Aries in mythology was capable of doing anything in order to prove a point. Sometimes she opposed the integrity of the cosmos to prove a point. And due to her attitude, it was exactly the cosmos that helped her. Aries also represents that desperate luck sometimes when chaos is on the side of the rebel. But okay, we understand the symbolism. This square is gonna cause uprising, protests, rebellion, civil war in some cases, as we see it play out on the world stage. So tensions and rebellion and people demanding their rights are gonna rise all-time high. This is definitely a very, very important moment in revolution and rebellion and freedom movements of any. Now, this isn't the case where 1,000,000% the people demanding their sovereignty who are, this isn't even where it's right and wrong, because this energy advantages any kind of rebellion. Sometimes the rebels are exactly agents of chaos, agents of destruction. Other times the rebels are agents fighting for justice and righteousness. So you can imagine that this energy advantages both cases. So we don't know what is going to result from this, but we must expect protests and Mars and Capricorn, strikes, certain services being halted, and like inner war within institutions. So this energy is definitely gonna produce these effects out there in the world stage, but individually speaking, again, and I'm so sorry, even with the risk of repetition, I have to say this once again. It doesn't matter how frustrating life will get next week, because this Uranus is really gonna work. It doesn't matter what we feel, especially on a mental plane. As I said earlier, time is running out. I have to do this fast. I'm this a certain kind of age. What am I waiting for? Don't give in to this. Know that these trines are gonna set you up exactly to get where you need to be. But it is only now that all major power players are moving direct. So this wraps up the past before the big progress towards the future begins. And chances are that is going to start executing around March, April, but in a realistic sense, when most planets, big planets, went through their shadow paths and are starting to cover new ground, especially here Jupiter and Saturn, really. So we must be patient, so to speak, but that doesn't mean that big closures, completions, terminations are not going to be set in motion very, very quickly. And ultimately, Uranus, secrets are going to be exposed. And this is where it's not just whatever we see playing out on the world stage, like secrets about technology and history and stuff like that. This is where personal things that, and this isn't the type of scorpionic or Piscean secret. This is where it's a secret because we are not aware of it fully. So of course we don't dwell on what we are not aware, and it comes out. Something really gets into our awareness. But at the same time, the other type of secrets coming out are also very possible. Neptune in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, and Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, at that critical 0 degree of Aquarius, the collective needs to know. You know what I mean? So, yes. And also at the very end of the week, Mercury is at almost an erratic Capricorn, so big negotiations and big discussions with top-down authority. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for all the love and support. Again, please try and stay in your place of neutrality to calm yourself and embrace whatever positivity all of these beautiful grand trines are going to offer us this week. And know that even if progress is not here yet in the sense where how we need it, it is coming, it is pending. But first, we need to wrap up whatever this Uranus is gonna highlight in our lives. So, thank you, everyone. If you'd like to support my work, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. With this being said, wishing everyone a blessed week. Until next time, bye for now.